Estou passando nesse podcast para dividir uma informação que fez toda a diferença na minha vida. Quer fazer pós-graduação, mas tá impossível correr de um lugar pro outro?
Pois é, ainda mais com o trânsito.
Então você precisa conhecer a educação à distância do Senac. Sabia que é nota máxima no MEC? E tem diversos cursos de pós-graduação para te levar ainda mais longe. 100% online, sem necessidade de TCC e com acesso direto a todos os professores.
Ah, saber isso fez diferença sim.
Inscreva-se já na pós-graduação EAD. Quer saber? Senac EAD.
From Wall Street to the White House, this is the Larry Kudlow Show.
Welcome back, folks. We're going to talk some politics. We got two of the best. Joe Concha, Fox News contributor. Joe's new book, Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys. No donkeys in Minnesota, folks, that's for sure. And my old pal Roger Stone, who's been a senior campaign strategist for every Republican, really since Abraham Lincoln. And Roger's got his own WABC radio show, The Roger Stone Show, which I read in the New York Post this morning in that great ad, is 3 to 6 p.m. Is that right, Raj?
It is true. I'm the hardest working man in show business now.
After me. I'm the hardest. But
all right, I'm the second hardest.
You're a close second, though. You can always have that. And that Roger Stone Show on WABC Radio, 3 to 6 p.m. Sundays on most of these same stations. Congratulations, Roger. That's great. All right. Roger, I thought Donald Trump did very well in Mar-a-Lago. I'm not giving him an A. I'll tell you why in a minute. But it was a strong B+, especially on taxes, growth, and the economy. He stood tall. Kamala won't talk to the media. There's Trump. I think he had one page of notes that we could see. That was all it was. No teleprompter, no nothing. Vintage Trump, okay? Vintage Trump. I'm going to ask you if he got the job done because, Roger, here's my little, it's not a nit, it's important. I don't think the ad hominem attack, she's stupid or this and that, I don't think that's any good. It's not substantive. And it's not that she's stupid. She's wrong. She's a far-left progressive radical, and he needs to hammer on that rather than the ad hominem. What you think?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think actually the press conference at Mar-a-Lago was the turning point on that particular matter. He demonstrated that he can be disciplined when he wants to be. And look, I understand when you call her stupid, it gets a big rise out of the rally crowds, and it's probably actually true, but it's not the driving issue in this campaign. Taxes is an issue.
Yeah.
She wants every U.S. taxpayer to pay for the health care of all of the 20-plus million people who are here illegally. That's an important issue. Her failure on the border, that's an important issue. And then, frankly, I think we need to examine her record, not just as a U.S. Senator, but as the State Attorney General and as the San Francisco prosecutor, because she said one thing and she did the exact opposite on so many issues. I saw this very compelling interview with a guy she tried to send to the electric chair. When they threw out his indictment, she re-indicted him, and he was acquitted. A black man, by the way. So, I mean, there's a lot there to look at, but it has to be issue-oriented. That's the way to beat her. And by the way, just calling her a Marxist, which she probably is, or just calling her radical left, that's still name-calling. You've got to get it down to the issues that people can understand. They understand a gallon of gas. They understand how much their dollar buys at the grocery store. They understand the tax bill. Those are the things that affect their everyday life.
Joe Concha, it's pretty hard to disagree with the great Roger Stone. I think you nailed it.
He completely did. I mean, when you say she is so far radical, this is the most extreme ticket of all time, Roger's right. You have to follow up behind that. Here's why they're radical because they want to abolish ICE, for example, right, which is a big, big problem. You had Tim Walz literally say he wanted to invest in a ladder company so he could allow illegals to get over Trump's border wall, right? These are things that are off the charts. And look, I got an 8-year-old and a 10-year-old in elementary school. I am certain I don't like, for instance, my 8-year-old boy, when he goes into the bathroom, to see a tampon machine there, as Tim Walz did there. And obviously Kamala Harris, we could go through the list again, wants to abolish fracking. She can't walk that back. She says she was 100% for doing that, abolish the fossil fuel industry, and end all offshore drilling. I mean, just on domestic energy alone, Roger's right. People know what a gallon of gas is. They know that it was $2.37 when Trump left office. They see now that it's well above $3.60. That's a big jump when you add it all up. And you say she wants to end all of our domestic energy resources and the way that we gather this stuff, and that's going to mean you're going to pay a lot more at the pump. People know that grocery prices are up 30, 40, 50%, and Trump did bring that up, but I think you really got to hammer home the specifics. Hey, if you live in Philadelphia, hey, everybody watching in Atlanta or Detroit, how are your social services been affected by illegal immigration? Trump keeps saying they're emptying out prisons and insane asylums. Right. Okay. Follow that up then with this is what 12, 15 million people means, because you've seen it, everybody in Michigan, in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, and in Atlanta, Georgia, just as examples, obviously New York and Los Angeles as well. But in those key states, social services are being taken away. Your sanitation's being taken away. Your police forces are being reduced. Your education's being reduced, all because of illegal immigration. He needs to get more specific. If he does that, I think these press conferences and interviews will be a lot more effective, but that takes some homework, and I know Trump doesn't like to do that because then he comes across maybe as a politician or not as authentic. You can be authentic and make those arguments at the same time. Well, that would be my constructive criticism for the former president.
I mean, look, I know him well, so does Roger, but he'll do homework. I mean, he'll read. He likes to talk to different people, which is okay, but I thought he was very good. I mean, I was on last night's TV show and this morning here. Trump was great, Roger, on tax cuts. I mean, he made it very, very clear. First of all, tax hikers lose, tax cutters win. But he also walked through it, and they've got this tax calculator that shows, we did an example, you make $75,000 a year, 2 kids, married, filing jointly, Kamala would cost you almost $3,000 a year. That's a lot for somebody making $75,000 in salary. You're very effective on taxes. Very, very effective on taxes. Didn't use the word growth the way he did at the convention. I always think growth, prosperity, opportunity are very good words to use in connection with that. But I think people know that he's the growth guy, and he's pounding her on that. So that's okay. That's real good, I mean, that's just real good. It's just that every time he calls her stupid, I cringe. Because I don't know if she's stupid. I don't really think she's stupid, okay? I don't think you get where she wins elections in the Senate, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's all luck. Maybe she's stupid. I don't think so. I think she's wrong. That's the problem. She's wrong. She's going to take the country in the wrong direction, Roger. And that's the message that Trump has to make.
I agree with all of that. Interestingly enough, Willie Brown is an old friend of mine. That's because we share an interest in things sartorial. He, along with you, has been on my international best dressed list. I think he's in the emeritus category. And he's told me on numerous times, don't think she's stupid. She's not as stupid as you think she is. She's tactically quite smart. And Willie is a master politician. I mean, he was the powerful Speaker of the California Assembly, as well as probably the last capable mayor of San Francisco. So she should not be underestimated. She shouldn't be overestimated, but she should not be underestimated. The other thing I would do, particularly after this week, if I were running the Trump campaign, which I'm not, I would get Tulsi Gabbard out on the road. She's particularly devastating on the question of Kamala Harris. And we learned just recently that when she criticized Kamala, the very next day, this administration put her on a secret domestic terrorist watch list and started surveillance of her, which is beyond belief. This is a former 4-term congresswoman who is a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Army Reserve and served our country in both Iraq and Kuwait in combat. yet we're spying on her. Why? Because she criticized Kamala Harris. Unbelievable.
That's
Unbelievable.
fascinating. Wow.
Not surprising, though, guys, right? Because you remember during the Obama-Biden administration, our former colleague James Rosen, when he was with Fox News, Eric Holder actually was spying on him, was tapping his phone calls, even his parents as well. Then he was deemed a flight risk. Again, this is a top reporter, right? And so I'm not terribly surprised because this is in the DNA of Obama-Bidenism.
You know what reminds me? Look at Mondale and Dukakis. Two things. Just bear with me on this. You'll see where I'm going. I mean, attacking this guy Tim Walz is fine. It's all well and good. And it's pretty much on the issues. Going after his veterans record, I don't know. I don't think that stuff is going to work. But he's a big liberal lefty from Minnesota. The economy's falling apart, and he has crazy ideas about law and order and the border and so forth. But it's the presidential top of the ticket that matters.
Yeah.
And look at Mondale was for tax hikes, and Reagan creamed him on that because the economy was doing so well. Reagan was great on it. Dukakis, maybe even more to the point, Papa Bush was getting killed by Dukakis. Remember, Dukakis said he was a competent manager, not an ideologue, but then they dug into his record and redefined him as the liberal left guy from Boston and Newton, Massachusetts, that he really was. He was up 17 points and lost by 8 points. That was Lee Atwater's handiwork in the main. That's what they need to do. They need to define Kamala the way they defined Dukakis and the way they defined Mondale. Roger, you were around those campaigns. I was in the Reagan administration at the time. I mean, I think those are the examples, but you do it with specifics and tough ads. You don't do it with generalities and, calling them stupid.
No, that's why I say I think we need to find people who have been Kamala Harris's victims. Someone who was murdered by an illegal because of their open border policies. Somebody that she tried to send to death row who was innocent, and the DNA evidence proved that. Some of the people she locked up for the first time, nonviolent crime of possession of small amounts of drugs, people who belonged in drug treatment programs who had no previous record. Now, sure, if they violate again, that's different, but she locked up 5,000 people for the exact crime that she accused Joe Biden of writing the law about, the 1994 crime bill. That's just hypocrisy. Personalize it. You have to personalize this so people can understand it. Raw statistics will not do the trick.
Joe Concha, I love the Mondale story. He can be from Minnesota. Ted Walter from Minnesota.
Yeah.
Walter Mondale, the quintessential taxer. He lost 49 states. But I also love the Dukakis story. This was from Victor Davis Hanson's article, and he talked about it last night. They went after Dukakis, Papa Bush and Lee Atwater, and I think they got to do something the same, Joe. Going after the Veep on the ticket, it's okay, blah, blah. Nobody knows who Waltz is. Nobody probably ever know who he is. But they will know who Kamala is, and that's the one they got to define her, Joe Concha. Define her.
And you need the audience to do that. And what I mean by that, guys, is that when the debate happens on ABC, and I believe it's September 10th, David Muir is going to do it, so at least it's not like a Stephanopoulos type, so maybe you'll get some fair questions. That's going to be watched by probably 70, 80 million people if precedent is any guide here as far as general election presidential. And plus, this will be the first time that people will really hear from Kamala Harris outside of a teleprompter, outside of pre-scripted remarks. So I think if Trump is ready, and I think he will be ready, absolutely, with all the things that we're talking about, I think that's where she gets exposed. That's where you define her, because that's going to be the one time where she can't be saved anymore by a script. And just like we saw with Biden, I think if Trump has an effective debate there, that could not end her candidacy. She's not going to drop out, but it'll certainly end the momentum and put this race where it should be, where Trump is leading in Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina. All
right, fellas, let me take a quick break. We'll come right back. I want to talk about some other things and why she's hiding from the media and how that's going to play out. Folks, we got Joe Concha, Fox News contributor. Joe's new book, Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys. We've got Roger Stone, ace political consultant and strategist, host of WABC Radio's The Roger Stone Show, Sundays, 3 to 6 p.m. on many of these very same stations. I'm Kudlow. Be right back.
Larry Kudlow.
Hey everyone, it's Ted from Consumer Cellular, the guy in the orange sweater, and this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service, you don't have to keep having that nightmare. Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable coverage as the leading carriers for up to half the cost. So why keep spending more than you have to? Seriously, wake up and call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com.
Savings based on cost of Consumer Cellular single line 1, 5, and 10 gig data plans with unlimited talk and text compared to lowest cost single line postpaid unlimited talk, text, and data plans offered by T-Mobile and Verizon January 2024.
Want to keep your gas-powered engines running like new? Stable's proprietary formulas are proven by third-party testing to outperform the competition in keeping fuel fresh, preventing corrosion, and cleaning the entire fuel system. With Stable, you can have confidence you are doing the right thing for your engine's long-term health. Just pour into your gas can or fuel tank, then top off with fresh fuel. At every fill-up or when you store, start with Stable. Available where fuel additives are sold.
From Wall Street to the White House, this is the Larry Kudlow Show.
Welcome back, folks. We're talking to Joe Concha, Fox News contributor, and Joe's new book, Progressively Worse, Why Today's Democrats Ain't Your Daddy's Donkeys, and Roger Stone, political strategist, eminence grise, host of WABC Radio's The Roger Stone Show, Sundays 3 to 6 p.m. on many of these very same stations. Joe Concha, this business about Kamala, I beg your pardon, Kamala, I mean, it's been 3 weeks since she was anointed. She hadn't talked to the press. She told Peter Doocy and others yesterday that it's going to be another 3 weeks, which could probably spill over through Labor Day.
Yep.
Does this become an issue? Does this become a political issue, Joe?
I think as long as, like I talked about during the last segment, that she isn't in a teleprompter, then it's going to go very badly for her. So it really feels like the John Fetterman strategy at this point, which is to delay as much as possible, even after early voting, which starts basically in early September in places like Pennsylvania. So I think it's worked for her to this point. I disagree with it 100%. I think if you're running for president, there should be accountability. But the fact that for 3 weeks she needs to prepare to, sit down with The View, sit down with Rachel Maddow. So you're going to see as little from her as any presidential candidate in history. But again, she could only hide for so long. The debate is everything because that's something she's agreed to, all those people watching. And if she has a bad night, there may not be any recovery from that because that's when really the first impression is going to be made, not these teleprompter rally speeches.
Roger, at what point, the contrast, here's Trump. Stood up 65 minutes in Mar-a-Lago, took everybody on, basically. All left-wing media was there, and he did a pretty good job. Okay, nothing's perfect, but I thought it was very good on the whole. And Kamala won't do that. Does that become a political issue? Does that cut into her credibility? Do people sort of shrug their does the general public get that?
I got to tell you, Larry, I think the American people want to feel like they know the president. I really think they want to feel like they know him or her. They want to have a feeling for her. She clearly cannot speak extemporaneously. And when she tries, it's embarrassing. And they know it. I've now noticed that when she gets off the plane, and therefore she has a brief interaction with the press, they actually have her reading out of a Ring notebook because she can't speak. There is no there. And I don't think you can run for president that way. No press conference, no serious one-on-one interview with any journalist. I don't think you can get away with that for the next, 90-plus days. I really don't think it'll work. Now, the debates, let's be clear, the expectation for her will be extremely low. For the president, particularly after his last debate, where he was extremely disciplined, I think the expectation will be very high. But I don't think she can think on her feet, and I think it's going to show. So, yes, I think it becomes an issue. And I think the president needs to keep hitting her on it. Kamala, when are you going to speak? And all the surrogates need to be out doing the same thing.
Joe Concha, the other thing is, speaking of the media, the ad campaigns. I'll go back to this this Victor Davis Hanson talking about the Dukakis campaign way back in 1988, Lee Atwater managing Papa Bush. The Willie Horton ad was a very famous ad. It was not the only ad that ran against Dukakis. How important are the ads? I mean, both sides are going to spend 5 fortunes. I was going to say a bloody fortune. It's going to be 5 or 10 fortunes. But how important is that going to be in terms of affecting public sentiment and votes?
I think it depends on where these ads are going, right? Like TV, less and less people, especially young people, even have a cable box in their house at this point, and a lot of people just watch TV through their phones, for example, through streaming. So, yeah, it has to be very strategic. All I know is when I was watching a TikTok video that my daughter wanted to show me, and I don't like her on TikTok all that much, but it was a cute thing about puppies, so what am I going to say, right? Because we're getting a puppy next week. But right before the video she wanted to show me, it was a Kamala Harris ad, right? So I think Trump, honestly, and I know he doesn't want to do this, maybe there's some sort of legal problem around this, but get back on Twitter, Mr. President. I mean, I think his X following was around 90 million followers. It's about 1/10 that on True Social. X has just been around longer. It's not really an indication of anything, but that is a huge, huge platform. Love to see him back on there and just flood the zone, not just traditional TV, but social media in the most popular of sites. I think that's going to be very, very crucial.
Roger Stone, just the last minute, less than a minute. Attacking this guy, Ted Waltz, because he's 20 years in the Minnesota National Guard, but he didn't want to go to Iraq. I mean, what is it? That just strikes me as superfluous.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. Only because they have been so vicious in their attacks on J.D. Vance. Yeah. I think J.D. Vance is going to rise to the moment, kind of the way Nixon did in the 1952 campaign. His moment is going to come here, and he's going to prove worthy. It's going to turn out to be a brilliant choice in the final analysis because that guy is a warrior. He is a fighter. And Waltz is a fraud across the board. It's not just that he lied about his military service. It's delaying sending in the National Guard when the Twin Cities was on fire in the George Floyd riots for three days. That kind of stuff matters.
All right, you guys. I like the J.D. Vance point. You're right. He's coming on strong. Joe Concha, thank you ever so much. Roger Stone, great stuff. Folks, I'm Kudlow. We're going to take a break. We're going to talk about the economy right after that. Stay with us, please.